Hey guys, great to have you on board for another episode of Nitro Nights. This is episode 14, where we get into the nitty gritty of everything related to esports racing. And in every single episode we have a brand new guest for you. Today is no different. We are welcoming Max Benecke to the show. So excited about this, to get him on to talk about sim racing into the fine details. That's on the way. Before we get to that though, two things. Need to remind you to subscribe to the show and the channel, and also follow us on Twitter if you're not already doing so. And then, secondly, we get to talk about this bad boy. This is my brand new Nitro Nights hat. I would be wearing it the other way around normally, but the team behind the scenes said, don't do that. You look silly. So this is the way I'm wearing it today. Now, a guy that makes me look very unsilly is a guy who's the producer, editor. He's Yannik Hauske. He's joining me for the Newsflash. Great to have you back, Yannik. How are you doing?
I will, of course, have to still undertake the massive task of making you look good on stream, but I'll do my best.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Listen, I'm excited to get our guest on, but before that, loads was happening this weekend. Where should we start, Yannik?
Let's go to America first. Let's start with IndyCar.
Oh, great choice. This was taking place on iRacing. It's the iRacing Challenge, Round 6, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, if you haven't watched it, I strongly urge you to do this, because 2 laps to go. Lando Norris, the F1 McLaren driver, was winning. However, he did appear to be deliberately taken out. I'll let you decide what you think about this whole big scandal going on at the moment with Simon Pagenaud. However, it wasn't the only car to be taken out. Wowzers. Last couple of laps, at one point it's O'Ward, Askew, Ericsson, but then O'Ward clipped the rear of Ericsson, took him out of the race. Then you had Askew, Ferrucci, McLaughlin, but Ferrucci took out Askew, meaning Scott McLaughlin got pole position to actually win the race. And in second place was Daly, the local lad, moved up 22nd to second. How did he do that? Well, he just avoided all of the carnage. Brilliant race. Definitely go back, and I'll let you decide on all of the hot topics around the internet at the moment. Where should we go to next then, Yannik?
Let's go to a race that's perplexingly pretending to not be a race.
Oh, I know what you're talking about here. This is not the Grand Prix, not the GP by Veloce. They're putting on brilliant shows. This week, we had a 2 times 25% race. The second one was a reverse grid, and it was happening at the German Grand Prix. And it was in the front, 1 and 2. It was Chembulik Bassi and Charles Leclerc going head-to-head and back and forth. Now, if you haven't seen the episode with Chembulik Bassi, make sure, not now, but you go back and watch it on Nitro Nights. Brilliant guy, and this is what he can do in the sim world, beating Charles Leclerc to that first spot. Also racing was Pietro Fittipaldi, Nicholas Latifi, Antonio Giovinazzi, Archie Hamilton, even Thibaut Courtois. Although my computer does a typo, it says this Courtois, and I say yes, Thibaut Courtois. Anyway, rubbish joke, but let's move on. Interesting enough, in the second race, what happened was TRL Limitless got the win over Charles Leclerc because Charles was handed a penalty. I tell you what, there's so many races this weekend where there was loads of penalties. Yannik, is it okay if I mention about the F1 Virtual Grand Prix now?
Yes, Tom, you can talk about your second job.
Perfect. Yes, my second job. A very exciting race. Should have been taking place on the Circuit de Zandvoort in the Netherlands, but that is not on the F1 2019 game. It will be on the 2020 game, which comes out in July. So instead, we went to the Brazilian Grand Prix in Interlagos. We did an F2 race. We also had the Pro Exhibition, and then we had this wheel-to-wheel racing between the big guys, Alex Albon and Charles Leclerc. George Russell was way back in third, and it was pass, repass, back and forth. Eventually, again, Charles Leclerc picked up a penalty and ended up back in third. So, first place, Alex Albon, second, George Russell, third, Charles Leclerc. Also racing that day was the Battle of the Cricketers. Ben Stokes was taking on Stuart Broad, and we also had the AC Milan centre-back and Italian international Alessio Romagnoli taking part in his debut race. There we go. Thanks for letting me mention that, Yannik. Any other open wheel racing for us?
There is actually more open wheel racing, not in the traditional sense, but is, let's say, the common man's open wheeler. And it is, of course, lawnmowers.
Wow. Now, if you'd have said this to me about 2 weeks ago, I'd have said, you have gone crazy, Yannick. However, I've watched this. It is brilliant. Lots of fun and laughter and enjoyment you can hear from from Charles Leclerc, George Russell, and Alex Albon. Brilliant moment. We're seeing the race here. George Russell deliberately takes out Alex Albon and he shouts, George, please. A lot of laughter, a lot of fun in this lawnmower action taking place at Silverstone.
I was 1 second off of my lap. He cuts the chicane and then just parks it on the
That was totally worth it.
So there you go. A lot of fun with those guys, but not really the competitive racing, but it was definitely very entertaining. Is that enough for four wheels for the time being, Yannick?
That is enough for four wheels. We'll move on to two wheels. They're similar in size to lawnmowers, but a lot quicker. MotoGP.
Yeah, a lot quicker. Yeah, this is the MotoGP 2020 Red Bull Virtual Grand Prix of Spain in the Circuito de Jerez, all to help out two wheels for life. So in the Moto3 race, Gabby Rodriguez won that. Then you had Lorenzo Baldaresi beating Jake Dixon to first place. That was in the Moto2. Loads of penalties going to the riders in that. And then there was absolute carnage, as you can see here in the MotoGP. Vinales, the eventual winner. And what I loved about the action is you had the drivers all dotted around the screen, which made it very entertaining to watch them throughout the race. Listen, I'm looking forward to the next MotoGP. Okay, then, Yannick, where should we head to next?
Well, it might have the biggest prize purse in sim racing. It also might have the best drivers in sim racing, but it has for sure, and we're certain about that, is the longest name because it's the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup.
Oh yes, we need to talk about that. However, can I be really fussy? Can I be really fussy, Yannick? We haven't spoken about Gran Turismo enough on this show. Could we just talk about? Okay.
Yeah, of course. I'll give it to you.
Because we had the GT Manufacturer Series and Nations Cup. That was taking place. The Nations Cup, the player races for their country. Rick Kevelham from Holland, the Netherlands, winning that race. So congratulations to him. But also in the Manufacturer Series, where they obviously represent the manufacturers, it was the Subaru. Mikhail Hizal winning in the Dragon Trail Seaside. And I found out about Mikhail, Yannick. He's actually, and I found this out from a reliable source, which is Twitter, he's a mechanical engineer. So I got facts for days, Yannick.
Wow, Tom, that's why we pay you the big bucks.
They're too kind. Listen, there you go. We're seeing Mikhail pass the line first there. Looking forward. That was round 3, heading into round 4. So can we go to the longest name in esports right now?
We're talking about the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup? Of course we can, no problem.
Okay. Well, it was a successful start to the season. Wins for Graham Carroll and Sebastian Job. The British duo from the Red Bull Racing Esports squad got those 2 wins. First of all, it was happening at the circuit Zandvoort in the Netherlands. Carroll crossed the line, finishing in the 15-minute sprint race with Job, good old Sebastian, winning the 30-minute main event. So it was a 1 and 2 for the Red Bull in that main event. Graham Carroll finishing second. Now, last year's champion, Joshua Rogers, claimed a podium spot in the main event. And also, our guest today, Max Benecke, was featuring that. So we'll find out a little bit later on how he did. Well, I don't know about you, Yannick. I think you did a brilliant job of making me look very good there. Did you enjoy it today?
I did. Working with you is always a pleasure, Tom.
Thank you. Well, I look forward to the next episode with you. But right now, stay tuned to watch the interview with Max Benecke. Well, the moment we've all been waiting for. Please welcome to Nitro Nights, Max Benecke. Great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Hey, Tom. I'm good. How about you?
Very well. Well, listen, I know the social distancing, but welcome to my lounge. I love your setup. When did you lose the fire? It looks like you had a fire and then it went.
Don't tell anyone. It's just fake. It's just a fake one that it looks better, but there's actually no fireplace. There was never, so I'm sorry, but yeah.
Well, listen, I tell you what, I love your setup. I can see your wheel in shot there as well. This is where Max Benecke races from. Is this the hub?
Yes, this is where everything comes together. I mean, you can only see a bit of the wheel, the microphone, but then we have 4 screens. We have a massive wheelbase, pedals, a PC, which is huge. So it looks a bit more massive from my point of view. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously, we know, you won the Porsche Sim Racing Trophy in 2018 amongst the whole load of other competitions that you've been taking part in terms of being the iRacing fastest driver in the iRatings. These are big accolades at Max. But first of all, the real question I have to ask, Max Benecke or Benecke, if I am German and speaking, what's the difference? And how do I say it right?
In German, you just pronounce it like it's written there, so Benecke, like with the German accent, but Benecke is totally fine, and I got used to it. I mean, I'm racing online since 5 years now, and since ever I watch the broadcast and people say Benecke, it's all good, it's fine. I mean, you get the point.
Hey, listen, we look at the person who's normally at the front of the grid, so we know that's Benecke, so it doesn't matter how we pronounce it. Listen,
Hopefully,
I've got to
yeah.
ask. We've got to talk about the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. You were going into this. It was an automatic qualification. Some people have said that could be a bit of a disadvantage for your preparation. How have you found getting into the competition?
Well, basically, I was used to the series already from the last year, but for this year it was a bit different again because 20 new people qualified for it who were all driving with the same car already a couple of months before. So they had a kind of bit of an advantage just because they were more used to the car than I was. But in the end, you get to practice the car again a couple of weeks before the first event. You get to the car, you know it, you know what you have to do. And in the end, the disadvantage is not really there anymore. But still, I saw the competition is bigger this year. So I just have to make sure that I keep it on a good level throughout the whole year now. And I hope it works.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, obviously, we're calling it the World Cup of sim racing. That's what it feels like in terms of the pedigree of the other drivers out there. And I know for a fact, we spoke about it just a week before, there were changes that you as a sim racer had to apply to your own sort of like understanding of how to go into the race. What did they change? Was it the tires a week before?
Yeah, basically, we got a new tire model already a couple of seasons ago, like half a year. So what they did, because the tire didn't feel that good, they made small adjustments to it. They increased the tire wear. They increased the feeling you have when the tires are actually cold. They removed the tire warmers. So there were a lot of things you had to get adjusted to in just a week, but that counted for everyone. It's just that you make a lot of work and effort for making the car feel right. And then 1 week before the event, they totally change it and you have to get used to it again, which always is the struggle with iRacing a bit. But in the end, the same cards for everyone and it's fine now and it feels good.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously, I appreciate you giving us this time because I know it's less than a week now before the next race and you need to get the practice in as much as you can. How important is it for the team around you? Before I start talking about your preparation, how important is to have a good team like with Max Verstappen alongside you?
Yeah, the team, although it's a series where you participate on your own and there are no team points, the team is the most important factor. If you have to drive alone on one track for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, months straight, you get pretty exhausted because you have to find something in the setup that probably brings you another 10th or so, maybe even less. And finding that just by your own is so hard and so complicated because you always have to drive, make an out lap, drive another lap, go into the pits, change another thing. And if you have like 5 to 10 people around you who do the same thing, we pretty much can get to the point where it's good way quicker than what you normally can do on your own. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, if you're trying to find those small margins of improvement, it definitely helps if you're amongst other good helpers in your team. How do you normally prepare then, Max? Say you're coming into this race, how many hours are we talking about? And what do you specifically look at?
So we had the first race of the season now, which is a bit different from the others because you have loads of time before to prepare, like a month or so. And now the next race is already a week later on a different track. So you have to like really stick to a couple of hours a day. I would say now for Barcelona, which is the next track on Saturday, we still have a week to go. I would say a day has 5 to 6 hours of practice, maybe a bit more even, depending on the day. So it's kind of a lot because you pretty much get exhausted pretty easily. So this is important. And a normal practice day looks like we're practicing from probably Monday to Thursday. On the race setup, we try to figure out what's good for the tires, what keeps the degradation down, and how can we just maintain our pace throughout the whole 15 or 30 minutes. And then the last 2 or 3 days, we really stick to practice the quali, because in the end, the quali is so tight. We have the top 20 most of the time only being separated by 2 or 3 tenths. So you have to nail the quali, and you have to have a setup on the car, which is very good and which you feel comfortable with. And so, yeah, basically first race and then quali.
Yeah, that's good. I get that structure, your timetable. I'm sure it's on your fridge as well. It's everywhere around your house.
Not yet.
This timetable. Just like, oh, I need to be doing this. I've got to ask, because the first competition, the first 2 rounds at the sprint race, Graham Carroll won that. I know Graham, a fantastic driver, and Sebastian Job winning the second. Was the qualification what held you back a little bit in this race? How do you see the race just gone by from your own evaluation?
Yeah, it's basically how you say it already. You have to nail the quali to be in the top 8 or maybe top 10, although top 10 would be already a bit off. But top 8 is what you always have to aim for, especially in the series where you want to win in the end. It's just very important. So if you are out of that top 8, it just doesn't work. And for me, I think I qualified P20 something or so. I don't even remember because it was that bad. The issue was that on the practice before, we already saw as a team that we are lacking 2 tenths in the car, and we couldn't figure that out even 2 hours before the event. So for me, it was clear, either I nail the lap completely and I probably have a bit of luck to get in the top 8, or I just crash or just spin or overshoot with the tires or whatever. And that's exactly what happened. I had a very good first lap, but unfortunately the first lap is 3 or 4 tenths off because the tires are not warm yet. So I only had 2 laps left like everyone else, and I messed up the first one and then too much pressure in the last one and just also didn't nail it there. In the end, I was only 3 tenths off. Only 3 tenths off, but in sim racing, this is a world, and it's just not possible then. And of course, there's a big pileup. We were racing on Zandvoort, so the track is very narrow, and people will crash in front of you, and that's exactly what happened. I even crashed my own, and in the end, I don't know, I think I finished P27 or so, so almost no points and a hopeless race. So I just have to make sure that every other race we are on top of the timing sheets there.
All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck. I feel like because you would have gone into it and people have been like, well, this is Max Benecke, or Benecke. He's going into this race. Do you feel like you have a bit of a target on your back because of previous competitions and how good we know you are on iRacing?
Yeah, absolutely. You feel that. I mean, I'm also streaming live on Twitch, so I know there are people watching. I know that those people expect the best from me because that's what I usually can do and what I most of the time did in the past. So, of course, you have this pressure, but it's something you have to deal with it. I'm normally pretty good at it, but I think just when you don't have the confidence with the car yet, then it's really hard to make it, because then you have the pressure on the one hand side and the car which is not fitting perfectly on the other hand side, and that's what messes your brain up, and then it just doesn't work anymore.
Okay, well, listen, I want to one final question on pressure. This $200,000 prize money involved in this competition, I imagine that's adding pressure. But do you think it's good for the sim racing scene?
Well, first, for me, the money at the beginning of the series or of the season isn't really a factor. I don't really think about it. Even like last year, you got a bonus of $1,000 for a race win. I didn't think of that in any kind of second during the race, because you're just focused on winning and beating those other competitors. It's not really about the money. I don't think that most people are running there because of the money. So yeah, it's a deal, but it's not that big, and it doesn't really add a lot of pressure. It's more about, people are watching you and people expect the best from you.
Yeah, just having that target on your back, it's hard to shake it off during races. I've been curious to know, and I guess give us an overview, not necessarily from yourself, Max, but the financial investment in sim racing. Are you seeing more of it, and is there enough of it, or could there be more to help drivers like yourself?
Well, there could always be more. We could always argue that there can be more, but I think the steps we took in the last 2 or 3 years are already huge, and we see a lot of big manufacturers, big brands joining us, which is very nice. And more people are able to make this their full-time job, which is great, because they actually, in the end, I know people say it's not a sport, but in the end, dedicating so much time into something you do physically with your hands and with your feet is, and also mentally, is sport in my point of view. So it's just good that more and more people can do it. But of course, I would like to see more investments being taken, because in the end, yes, we have the motorsport. Of course, we have a crisis right now, but it's a different kind of sport, and we should see it as that. And I think we can get there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that age-old argument about being a sport, but yeah, I totally agree with you. Listen, I feel like it's the perfect time to just ease a bit of tension. Not for myself. I'm loving the chat with you with your not real fire, Max. But are you ready for the quick fire questions?
I hope I am. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Your time starts now. Quick fire question number 1: favorite car to drive?
Porsche.
Okay, best
Or
meal.
does it have to? Okay. Best meal, Schnitzel.
Okay, worst German food.
Worst German food. German food. We don't have food. Like, we just put something together. What's German food? Like, we have potatoes. I don't know. What's German food?
Okay.
Worst food. I hate eggs. I hate eggs. If that counts,
What?
I hate eggs. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I'm sure you can find German chickens. So there you go. German food, German eggs. Done. Okay, tough question. Moving on. Hockenheim Ring or Silverstone?
Silverstone.
Oh, driving idols.
I don't exactly know what you mean there with that question.
Okay. Who are your driving idols getting into sim racing?
Driving idol, Michael Schumacher. Sure.
Okay. And this is the tough question. Lando Norris or Max Verstappen?
Max Verstappen. Sorry, Lando.
Okay.
I love you.
Thoughts on the blue flag rule at the moment in iRacing?
Absolutely crap. Please, iRacing, do something against it and let those people get punished for keeping us behind and crashing us out in 24-hour races.
Okay, perfect. Passion coming out there from Max. Gran Turismo 4 or iRacing? And I know that's going to be a tough question for you.
I know it is tough, but I just got to say iRacing. But maybe Gran Turismo now, making 4 remaster or so, a couple of years later would be great.
Okay, and listen, finally, and a tough question, this one. If you could relive the world's fastest game or two, what would you do differently?
Not much, actually. I think I've done my best. If I could do it again, I would probably push the car even more, just maybe even crash out and don't care too much of it, just to really feel where exactly the limit is and how I am able to even prevent the car from going off at the limit.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's great. Congratulations, Max Benecke. That is your quick fire questions done. I will pass on the apologies to Lando Norris for you.
Thanks.
I wanted to really, while I've got you here, to talk about mental preparation for the races. We know the skill involved. We know the time it takes. But how do you mentally prepare, and how does that affect your performance?
I think that's where I'm struggling the most, because I don't really make any preparation for my mentality. I just go into my race, just race as I would race in a normal race. But obviously it adds this pressure. So the only thing I really do once the qualifying starts and I go on my first flying lap, I just take a deep breath, breathe in and breathe out again. And that already calms me down a bit. But I think I have to do a bit more in terms of mental strength just to nail this quali all the time, because in the race, I'm always there and I can get into the tunnel. But yeah, as you can see, I mean, qualified in the middle of the grid, mental strength is super important, not just for motorsport, but also for sim racing.
Yeah, I guess it's that kind of, you're doing mental weights to try and bulk up, and it sounds like you're surviving at the moment just on pure instincts. But if you have that other comfort blanket of knowing you're mentally strong or could be stronger, that would help you. Do other drivers in the sim world use that mental preparation?
I think Mitchell Young is one of the best in there. He just like I was when we were in USA for World's Fastest Gamer. We were sharing the room quite often, so I knew when he wakes up, he's like starting to juggling and doing this kind of stuff just to get prepared. So I think he's really good at this level as being an athlete. And but on the other hand side, I think that most of the people in this series are not really thinking about their mental strength, but it's something they should actually focus on, including me. It's just something so new still, and the competition is very high, and because of that, we should all just do a bit more in terms of that.
I guess if I sent you a YouTube video right now, you've already got enough work to be doing. You can't suddenly rechange, or because you're so used to it, it would be hard to implement right now. Even if you knew it would help you maybe 5%, it's difficult to put it into your routine at the moment.
Yeah, sure. It would be something I would need to tell my brain that I just have to do it and stick to it and do it day after day. And then at a certain point, it gets to the routine. But surely changing something for us people, it's the worst thing. Changing something in life always is the worst thing. And people always have a hard time dealing with it. And I'm one of those people. So yeah, it's just the way it is.
Okay, well, I also wanted to ask you about sim racing in terms of some drivers have a natural talent, but you need to work on it. So what's been your secret, Max? Is it been the grind, getting on the rig and just putting in the hours? How have you utilized the talent to that kind of dedication?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's no real trick to it. You just have to be really dedicated. Once you know, and that was the case for me. I came from like Gran Turismo, from F1 2011, F1 2012, and I knew I can be competitive in the all the leagues I was racing in. So then switching to iRacing, seeing that I'm half a second off, even more, was really frustrating for me. And I'm not that guy who is playing a game where he's not good at. That's why when I was playing, for example, PUBG or so, I played it, I had fun, but once I got killed in a very weird way, I just had to close it because I just can't I just can't play a game where I'm not like super good at. So for me, this dedication came from there, that I just want to beat all the other guys in my races, and then just practicing and trying to figure out what the good guys are doing differently in terms of lines, in terms of braking, in terms of corner speed setups and stuff like that. And it's just this dedication which I think everyone in for example, the Porsche Esports Supercup has, and this is what you need if you want to become really one of the fastest guys in any kind of game or racing game.
Yeah, definitely. Because I've asked many drivers and they say it's not about having the best setup. And I know back when you started, it was just a laptop out that you were racing on. But that determination, that competitive edge that you have gives you that difference. I love that as an answer. That's perfect for everybody watching. Now, I know that you started back in iRacing back in 2015. How much, because I know that you'll use other platforms you're racing on, but how much time did you invest in it then? If you could give us a number compared to what you have to do now to maintain your ability.
Definitely more time than now, because when you're actually off, you have to make a lot of work and effort for it. So I think at the beginning I was still going to school, so I would say probably around 8-9 hours a day or so, just to really get it done and check the replays. But now it's less, but it's a different level. It's back then it was just about my driving, whereas now I know my driving is good, so I just need to get the setup done for the car. So it's a total different approach. And I kind of wish I could go back again and just have this feeling to improve my own driving style, because at the moment there's just nothing to find anymore. I feel like I'm on the top of the iceberg. There's nothing anymore in my driving. I can just find something in the car.
Wow. That sounds like that's incredibly frustrating.
Yes, it It is. I mean, that race on the weekend was so frustrating for me already, the practice before, 2 or 3 hours before the race. It's so frustrating to see that all the hours you spend are just worth nothing because you can't show what you actually can do on the track. And it's the same for my teammates, not just for me. We all had a big bummer there because we saw that we didn't make the best job on the car setup. And now it's the time where we have to figure it out. And we already made good steps. We spent nights now, last two nights, to just figure it out. And I think we get there, and then it's finally time to show what we can actually do.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, it's been an absolute pleasure of finding the insights of going on in Max Benecke's head. I can feel the frustration, but I know that you're working on it. In terms of the drivers that are driving at the moment in that competition for Porsche, with the Red Bull team doing so well, Sebastian Job, Graham Carroll, are there any other drivers out there that you've kind of had a look at and think that they're going to have a really, really good competition?
Well, as you said, Red Bull, yes, they are there, especially with the car they have now. But then, obviously, Joshua K. Rogers, he won last year. He's one of the best drivers in terms of just the skills. So I think also for the consistency, he will be there. I didn't see anyone particular because it's very early in the series, but we have 40 drivers and they're all so close in the level. They basically everyone could win at a certain point. So it's not about really looking at just one or two guys in the series. It's looking about finishing in the best position for yourself and not caring too much about the others, because if you finish in the top 5 in every single race, you're going to win the championship. There's no doubt about that, because one single guy can't win all of the other races or all the races. And so it's more about looking at yourself and not caring too much about specific people in the competition.
Well, listen, Max Benecke, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the Nitro Nights episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I've learned a lot, and our viewers will as well. I wish you all the best for the remaining of your practice, which for a guy that's not even had breakfast today, you're doing remarkably well. I hope you've enjoyed being on Nitro Nights today.
I did, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Tom, and wish you all the best too. And thanks for the kind words.
Listen, anytime. Listen, to everyone watching Nitro Nights right now, we'll be back on Wednesday with a brand new episode and another guest as well, giving their insights into the esports racing scene. Until then, stay safe and we'll catch you soon.